David, can we start by you telling me a little bit about your experiences in risk management?
So, I'm the risk doctor and I've been managing risk for over 25 years, which of course means that I started when I was very young. I started doing risk management in the mid-1980s when I was working for a defence contractor and was told to do it. Not a very good motive. Now I do risk management because I know that it really makes a difference between success and failure. And Risk Doctor and Partners is helping major clients and small organisations around the world to manage risk wherever they find it, from corporate and strategic through to project, programme and tactical delivery. And we're helping them to make a difference.
Can you say just a little bit about the difference between risk appetite and risk attitude?
Yes, there's a lot of confusion between these terms because they sound the same. Risk appetite, risk attitude, are they just synonyms? We can kind of switch them over. I think it might help us to use the natural words to understand what the risk words mean. So what is appetite? Appetite is an internal craving or desire, a feeling which is very hard to put your hand on, to express or to measure, which comes out as hunger. So you have an appetite for food, but how do you say, what is that appetite? Is it high, medium and low? Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Is it red, yellow, green? How do we express it? We have to have some kind of external expression of appetite, which we say things like, I could eat a horse, or I just fancy a salad. A horse and a salad, of course, are measures. They aren't appetite. They're physical measures of the expression of appetite. So appetite is something internal, which is just what it is, and it has an outcome in behaviour. Attitude is rather different. The natural word attitude is about positioning. You can have the attitude of an aeroplane, or the attitude of a spacecraft or a submarine is its orientation in relation to the horizon. It's how do you lean towards or away from something. And in the psychological sense, an attitude is how you position yourself in relation to something. Now that actually is a choice. Just like the pilot of an aircraft can lean its aircraft in a number of different positions in order to achieve a particular outcome, so mentally we can adopt different risk attitudes in order to get to different places. So just to illustrate the difference, I was in Australia a couple of months ago and I was going to be giving a seminar in the afternoon of the day that I arrived. So I was fairly jet lagged and fairly tired. My host took me out for lunch before the afternoon seminar. We went to a very nice restaurant and he said, have anything you like, what would you like? Well, I was hungry. There was a big menu, a nice menu, and a long wine list. And I thought, I'd like a really nice meal and a good glass of wine. That was my appetite. I was hungry. And then I thought about, well, I've got to perform this afternoon, to lead a workshop, to lead a seminar. I need to be sharp, I need to be alert, and I've just travelled halfway around the world. If I eat a big meal and drink a glass of wine, if I fulfill my appetite, then I'm going to be in trouble this afternoon. So I had to choose something different. I chose the salad, I chose some sparkling water. I didn't fulfill my natural appetite. Attitude is a choice, appetite is a driver. And we can choose to modify our appetite by the application of attitude. So when it comes to risk, we might find an organisation which wants to take a lot of risk. It's hungry for risk, but it's not capable of handling it. So it needs to be more cautious. It needs to adopt a more risk-averse attitude than the appetite would drive it to. Or you might find an organisation which is not very hungry for risk. It doesn't have a very high appetite. It's not prepared to step outside and do something different, but then it won't be competitive. And so it needs to adopt a more risk-seeking attitude. The attitude moderates or modifies the appetite.
Who's currently talking about risk appetite?
Risk appetite used to be just the preserve of academics. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, that's changed quite a lot recently as a result of the financial crisis, the economic trials that we've had in the last 3 or 4 years. And a lot of the regulators have started saying that the boards of organisations need to understand the level of risk that they're prepared to take. And that's the definition of risk appetite used by corporate governance regulators, the level or amount of risk that an organisation is willing to take on in pursuit of its objectives. So this is being said now by the FSA. They've recently reissued the corporate governance guidelines for UK companies. It's also the position of the European corporate governance regulations. And in addition, there's a whole range of other corporate guidance from around the world, which is saying organisations need to know and express their risk appetite. And the main professional body for risk management, the Institute of Risk Management, just recently published a major paper on risk appetite and risk tolerance, trying to bring some sort of structure to the discussion. So it is a hot topic because the corporate governance people are requiring it. Major organisations are now saying, okay, we know we have to do it, but how? What is it? How do I understand my risk appetite and how do I express it? And so behind that, we're now finding the major consultancies are offering advice. So the KPMG, PwC, Deloitte, Ernst & Young are all talking about risk appetite as well, trying to help their clients to understand how to meet the corporate governance requirements.
Why does this matter so much?
It really matters because we can set the level of risk that we're prepared to take at the corporate level. That will actually flow all the way down the organisation right to the project and programme level, because each project needs to understand how much risk can I take on my project? How much risk is too much risk? Can we, if we overspent by £1,000, are we in trouble? Are we in trouble if we overspend by £1 million? What happens if we're a day late, a month late, or a year late? Where are our risk thresholds or our risk tolerance? And each project needs to understand that, because those are the constraints within which we manage the risk on the project and the programme and the department and the function, in fact every part of the business. And all of those things derive from the corporate risk appetite. So how much risk are we prepared to take as an organisation in the achieving of our goals? If we don't understand our corporate risk appetite, then we can't set proper thresholds for our projects and programmes.
How do I know whether or not my risk appetite is appropriate?
There is a fairly simple process for understanding if your risk appetite is appropriate. It starts, of course, with knowing what it is, and so we do need to have some way of expressing risk appetite. And I talked about hungry enough to eat a horse or just fancying a salad. We need to express that feeling, that driver, that internal tendency of the organisation in measurable terms, which relate to our corporate and strategic and project objectives. So we would have a risk threshold relating to share price or shareholder value, a risk threshold relating to market share or to product range. And at the project level, we'll have risk thresholds relating to cost and time and performance and reputation and safety and those other things which are important to our projects. Now, risk appetite will lead to a certain type of behaviour. If I'm hungry, I'm going to go out and eat, but I might overeat. Or if my appetite is particularly low, if it's suppressed or depressed, then I might not eat enough. So what we need to do is to diagnose or assess the behaviour that we're taking, compare it with our risk limit, and see if we're actually taking the right amount of risk in order to achieve our goals. So the first thing is understanding what it is. The second thing is seeing where it's going to take us. And the third thing is to come back to risk attitude. Do I need to change the way that I'm behaving in order to get to my goals? Do I need to take on more risk or take on less risk? Do I need to eat less than my hunger, or do I need to overeat in order to achieve what I need? So risk attitude applies to make sure that we moderate our risk appetite.
And where can I find out more about this topic?
Well, certainly the IRM has issued its consultation paper, which came out in September of 2011. You can find that on their website. But it is still a consultative document. It's not the final word. I'm writing a book, A Short Guide to Risk Appetite, which should come out in the early part of 2012. As I say, all of the other consultants, the big 4 or 5, are offering their advice as well. At the moment, this is still a fairly fluid topic. The corporate governance regulators have said you've got to do it. We don't really know yet how to, and people are reaching towards a process that might help them to do it. So it's quite a fluid and developing situation, but we're beginning to see some clarity, particularly around this dual idea of risk appetite and risk attitude and how the two interplay together. So I think it's a case of watch this space, but hopefully within 6 months or a year, things should become much more clear.